Hello, everyone, and welcome to the third episode of this series on maximizing your Microsoft 365 potential. In this episode, we are going to talk about how you can maximize return on investment by reclaiming potentially unused licenses. Let's start with a quick introduction. Hello, everyone. My name is Vlad Catrinescu. I'm a Microsoft MVP from Montreal, Canada. I'm an author at Pluralsight as well with over 80 courses, and I'm excited to be joined by my good friend and Microsoft MVP, Drew Madelung. How are you doing, Drew?
Great, Vlad. Great to see you. So my name is Drew Madelung. I'm also a Microsoft MVP. I'm a Microsoft consultant, so I specialize in helping organizations deploy and manage Microsoft 365, and been working with you, Vlad, for feels like as long as I've been consulting.
Feels like for like a decade.
Does feel
Probably a decade. We mentioned that this is the third episode. If you haven't seen the other episodes yet, we talked about orphaned workspaces and orphaned users inside our tenant. So make sure you go to the Siskit channel and check out those videos if you missed them. But now let's focus on this episode. So, what are we going to cover in this episode? We're going to start by covering some Microsoft 365 licensing basics. And I know licensing is such a huge topic, right? I always joke that you need a separate PhD to fully understand Microsoft 365 licensing, but we're going to try and cover the basics. After that, we're going to look at some Microsoft 365 reports to help us understand how are licenses used inside our organization. Do we pay for licenses that we're not even assigning to people? And can I know what people are using what services? Finally, we're going to learn about an Enter ID premium feature called group-based licensing. So let's get started. Let's start by first of all covering the basics of Microsoft 365 licensing. So, as you probably know it right now, because if you're looking at this, you're probably an M365 admin. Microsoft 365 is a software as a service offering, meaning that there's no servers to install or deploy. You just buy the license, you assign it to the user, and you are ready to go. Now we have multiple license options. Each one of those options has different things included. You have Microsoft 365 licenses, you have Office 365 licenses, you have standalone product licenses, such as you can technically just buy a SharePoint Online license or an Exchange Online license if you want to. And we also have add-ons, which we seem to have quite a few of them lately. Licensing in the Microsoft 365 world is calculated at per user per month, which brings us quite a ton of flexibility because what I can do if I have maybe 20 different summer interns coming in only for the summer, I can buy 20 licenses for them, assign it to them while they are working for me during the summer, and after the summer, stop paying for it and they're off back to school and I stop paying for them. I don't need to pay for the full year. Now, a lot of the questions I get is what are the differences between Microsoft 365 and Office 365? Now, in Microsoft 365, we actually have Office 365 included. Office 365 includes all your productivity tools from the PowerPoint app that I'm using here right now for my presentation to Word, Excel, Outlook, where you can send emails to everybody, as well as all your cloud productivity solutions. So SharePoint, Teams, OneDrive, Loop, Planner, and over 20 more. In Microsoft 365, we also have Windows that we pay for. So probably you're going to be using Windows 11 right now, but I know a lot of companies are still using Windows 10. If you get a Microsoft 365 license, you have Windows included. And finally, the Enterprise Mobility and Security Suite, or EMS, which is all your security and compliance solutions. So everything to manage your device, to everything to making sure you have MFA applied to your device, that you don't sign in from shady locations, you don't have a weak password, and all those amazing features. Okay, but you see already here, if I have a user that simply just uses Teams and SharePoint from time to time, they work from their own device, or maybe especially now we have so many people that don't even work from a laptop, don't even work from a desktop, they do all their work from a mobile device. Do I need to pay a Windows license for them? Is an M365 license the best possible option for me, or might they only need an Office 365 license? That's one of the first things to look at. You don't need to have the same license for every user in your organization. And a lot of the times, too many organizations just say, we'll get E5 for everybody. We're not going to look at the details. We'll just get the same license for everybody. And then you have some people that need stuff that you might not have, and other people that have way too many things that they do not need, but you still end up paying the same. Drew, do you see any companies that over license their users?
I've seen scenarios where I've seen hundreds of accounts that have been disabled, that have continued to have the E5 licensing stick around simply to control some, because of lack of knowledge, I would say. So they ended up paying in a very large amount of money by over claiming or over procuring licenses for accounts that aren't necessarily needed for them. And I've also seen it, and as this expands, it's becoming more complex with the more add-ons that we get. So as we get things like Viva and with SAM, or now when you get into some of the more Entra ID specific ones, there's always going to be flexibility in that. So I think another big one you get is like, can I buy one, like Vlad, can I buy one E5, one Microsoft 365 license and cover my organization? Right? That's also not real either. It actually gets down to the services level itself. So when you're thinking about, it's not just what's included, you need to know about this high level of what's included in Microsoft 365, but then it also gets into the level, like there will be layers below it that you can actually get more granular at. So you need to understand what you need to do, what you're, as Vlad talked about, what your employers are doing, and then work with that to figure out what you need as an organization. And every organization is different. Just don't over license. That's actually more of the concern than if you under license.
I think a lot of it is also understanding it and understanding what people need to do, which is, of course, very important. But just to give an idea of pricing, right? And of course, this will depend per region you're in. This will depend how good of a negotiator you are with your Microsoft salesperson, how many seats you have. But those are the public prices on the website. So a Microsoft 365 E5 license is $57 per user per month. An E3 license is $36 per user per month. And then we have a type of license that I love, which are the F licenses. So the F licenses are your field worker licenses. So those are the licenses that are made for people that don't work in the office. So think of, are you a retail store? All the people that work on the floor in your retail store, or you might have traveling salespeople that only work on their phone, work from tablets. They have a type of license for them. They're called the field worker license. So here I have the F3 license, which is $8 per user per month. And then I have the F1 license, which is $2.25 per user per month. Now, even in the F1 license, I still have an email address that you can send me emails to. I still can access SharePoint Online, for example, to access the intranet. I do have some limitations that it's in read-only mode, so I cannot modify stuff on SharePoint. I have read-only access, so I can still use apps such as Word, Excel, PowerPoint in read-only mode. I cannot install them on my Windows PC. So there are some limitations, but still, so many companies have a number of users that don't need the full Microsoft 365 suite. And Microsoft does have all the options for you to uh, diversify the licenses that you get to make sure that everybody gets the license they need. And remember, because it's per user per month, you're not locked into that forever. You can always say, hey, you know what? This user was a field worker. They just graduated. They're going to come work inside the company. We can upgrade that license later on to a full M365 license. So you do have a lot of flexibility, but try to look today, what is the license that somebody needs to get their job done without overpaying for things they might not need.
And as you upgrade that, the big check I would make sure you go through is a big step I see is the E3 to E5 step or F3 to E3 step. Make sure you understand the differences that you have in your organization that require that level of step up. That's what will help determine you could potentially, as we'll talk about in a little bit, how you could group them. But if you think about grouping them early, it'll set you up for success to start to move into how to organize and reclaim the licenses that you have.
Awesome. So now that we did a bit of basics, and again, I did not cover all Microsoft 365 licensing. It's impossible to do in a short video. I could probably, me and Drew could do a 4-hour workshop on Microsoft 365 licensing, especially with all the add-ons we have now with SharePoint Premium, Teams Premium, Viva, and all of that. That was just a small teaser to show you there's flexibility. But now let's talk about reports. First of all, if you go to your M365 admin center, and you know what, instead of just doing slides, why not just go and show it live? So I'm in the Microsoft 365 admin center. I'll zoom in a bit here. On the left side, under billing, I can go under licenses. And let me minimize this so we make sure we see everything. Let's go scroll down at the bottom. Here is where I will see what are all the different licenses that I currently have for my organization. Now, of course, you need to be a global admin or a billing admin to see this. Not every single admin role has access to this. So if you're only a SharePoint admin, you might not see this page. Just wanted to let you know. Now you see right now, my first license that I have here is Office 365 E5 without audio conferencing. I have one available license, and here if I look at the details, you see 4 out of 5. What does that mean? The way that licensing works when you buy a license in Microsoft 365, you go in either through your CSM or directly in the portal, and you're like, hey, you know what? I want to buy 5 Office 365 licenses. Cool, I have them in my tenant, and then I need to assign them to users. Right now, in my tenant, I actually only have 4 assigned out of the 5 I'm paying. So I'm paying for 5, but one of them is not even assigned to any user. Here at the bottom, I'm paying for 25 E3 licenses, but 8 of them don't even have a user assigned to them. So I'm basically giving free money away because all those licenses, it's not that they're assigned to a user that's not using them or whatever. They're not even assigned to a user right now. Now, of course, when you look at this in your tenant, remember, you maybe just bought them, you have more people coming in next month, you want it to be ready. That can be a good thing. But if every single month you go here and you see that, hey, we have 10, 15 licenses that are not assigned to people, is there something we can do? Can we drop or cancel some of those licenses and not pay for them every single month? So, and don't worry, a lot of you will have some of those trial licenses and things like that in your tenant. You see, I have all of those Power Automate free or Power Apps Plan to trial where I have 10,000 of them that are not assigned, or Microsoft Fabric where I'll have like 1 million of them that are not assigned. The way that trials and things like that work at Microsoft, you might end up having a bunch of those in your tenant as well, but really focus on the ones that you are paying for. But okay, so this is for licenses that are not even assigned. Now, what if I want to quickly see, are users actually using all the things that I pay for? I can go under reports here on the left, and then I can go to usage. Here I have my Microsoft 365 usage reports. This is where I can see the usage in my tenant for the past 7 days, 30 days, 90 days, or 180 days. So I can go all the way as back as 6 months if I want to. Now, of course, this is a demo tenant, so it doesn't have the most activity ever. Hopefully, in your tenant, you will have quite a bit more activity here than 3 active users. But what I can do is, let me go here as an example. Let's go to Microsoft Teams here. What I can see is you can see the number of licensed users that I have, as well as how many do I have active. Let me go 180 days. This way I have a bit more users, and I'll zoom out so those look a bit better. I can see how many channel messages have been sent, chat messages, things like that. And at the bottom, I can see all the different usernames. But you might be like, hey, Vlad, that looks a bit weird. That's not really a username that you have there. So this is because right now in my tenant, it's set to be anonymous. So right now, the way that I have configured it in my tenant is that I cannot know which user is this random username. And some companies have it anonymous, some companies don't. But again, if ever you want to bring it back to showing the usernames, you can. It's another setting you can do inside the admin center. And if ever you even want to take it to the next level, if you have Power BI Premium, you could actually have the Microsoft 365 Analytics app in there and have even more information. So you do have all those reports built in with Microsoft 365. But what else can we do? So we talked about this. We also can do PowerShell reports. Now, PowerShell reports, the beautiful thing about it is that with the Graph PowerShell API, you can actually create your own custom reports, save them to a CSV file, and then you can even do some Power BI on it. For example, to say, hey, I want to know how many E5 licenses am I using in Canada? How many licenses do we have for the HR department? So with PowerShell, you can save all the raw data, and then you can, what I've seen a lot of companies do is use Power BI to leverage it, to make it look beautiful. And this can also be really useful if ever you want to have chargeback inside the company where the cost of the license goes to that specific department as well. So that can come in really, really useful. Drew, you worked with quite a bit of big organizations. Do you have some of them that actually use a chargeback to
Yeah.
build directly the
The
department?
biggest ones I like to see here is around Power Platform. So that's where when we see crowdsourcing, the ability to, I love seeing it now with the per app request or the premium requests in the Power Platform. That's a cost that it's very hard to. You don't want to just go out and buy 5,000 premium licenses from a Power Platform perspective. It's very good to build those as needed, especially if you need to go per app. So those are ones that I see most commonly now using reports like this to generate to say, if I need to, let's say I have a Power Automate flow out there that is starting to hit some limits and I want to upgrade it or get a premium license for it, then I have my own request process that I include like a cost center that we actually tie to that. So we know when it's submitted through a process that we can report on and say, yeah, Drew has a premium license, but Drew's in cost center 5. Those need to all be sent back to cost center 5. So not as much with the E3, E5s. I've seen those when you get into larger organizations that have separate entities or subsidiaries inside of themselves. Like if you did a large organization with multiple companies inside of their own, and you might be doing your own purchasing, separate purchasing by company. So that's where you'll need to get granular with how you report on this, and the built-in reports can't dictate that, right? So if we look at the team's report for activity, that's good to show you if people are not using the license or not. That's a clear reclaim, but it doesn't get you the granular detail of what this user is doing with this license. That's more on the add-on or maybe a specific service within E3 or E5 itself.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the reports that we looked at, they're built for adoption. That is the main use of those reports, is how do we increase the adoption of a certain tool and how do we track that? They're not made to track licenses. So we don't have all the details that we would need for a pure licensing report, but they can still help us with that. Awesome. Last thing I want to show you, and by the way, this is an amazing script. The one you see here, the output on the screen, I don't want to rebuild the wheel. So if you go to the link in the slides here, or simply search for Practical 365, Microsoft 365 licensing report, you'll find an amazing PowerShell script written by a Microsoft MVP that will show you how to build it. And it's also on GitHub. So you don't have to rebuild the wheel. You can start from there and adapt it to your needs. But something that we mentioned a bit earlier, Drew, is grouping our licenses and assigning it to groups rather than looking at people individually. Now, so a feature that not many people know about is group-based licensing. What Microsoft allows you to do is say, hey, you know what? We know that most organizations already have security groups, whether it's by department, by country, by role, things like that. Why recreate the wheel again for license assignment? I can actually assign licenses based on a security group. So what I can say is that, hey, everybody that's in the Contosa team will automatically get assigned an E3 license. Somebody joins, gets added to the Contosa team, the license is assigned. Maybe that person moves from the Contosa team, they move to another organization in the Wingspin Toys team. You know what? The Wingspin Toys, they make more money. They have E5s for everybody. They also have group-based licensing applied. So they move from E3, they move to E5, they get the new license applied. So in a way, it's a way to get governance and automation in your license assignment. So it's a great way to make sure that everybody has the right licenses assigned. Drew, have you seen organizations leverage this feature?
In my opinion, this is, as long as you have the licensing for it, this is a necessity. It truly, especially as your organization grows, being able to manage things through a group allows you manage the licenses through a group, eliminates the potential for the reclaim actions that we need to do, right? So this episode, we're talking about reclaiming. But so once you've identified things to reclaim, because you figured out users that don't need this license anymore, a way to control that going forward is to put controls in like this. So an example I talked about for Power Platform, you could also have a request that would say, instead of going and having to add the license for that premium add-on, you could also add them into that group, which it can go through a ServiceNow or another ITIL request process with approvals. So you can do all of that around this, and then have the license assignment let you be the final say with this group addition. So when I work with organizations, this is one of the first things I work on, as long as they have that license set. But you do need to go through that reclamation process first to make sure you understand what your needs are, and then you can move into or evolve into group membership. Because if you just put everyone in the same group, it doesn't really solve the process, right? It doesn't solve the reclamation. You need to still understand what your teams are doing, and then then you can become granular with the license application.
Awesome. Well, this is it for me, Drew. We kind of covered everything out of the box. But again, if you don't want to make your own PowerShell scripts, if you want to be proactive in it and not forget any licenses and get the best out of it, make sure you check out the sponsor of this video, Syskit. They offer a 21-day free trial, so you can just go download it and then check out, do you have any unused licenses that you can reclaim and save money every month on your licenses. Make sure you go check them out. Drew, any final things to add?
Not till we start to the next episode, which we will be talking about. In episode 4, we'll be talking all about team ownership. So if you come on, please tune to the next episode where we'll talk all about ownership around teams.
Thank you very much, everybody, for joining us, and looking forward to see you in the next one.
Thank you.